LSS just sent in their newest content creator appreciation kit. I want to thank them for once again supporting content creators with really awesome and meaningful gifts. And this is also going to be how I'm going to give away the promos that came in there, which are for the UPF Blitz format. Because you only need a pair for a playset, a lot of people are going to be getting them. The way we're going to do it is anyone going into next month who subscribes to the Teklovasen tier on my Patreon will be sent a pair, so a full playset, and any that are left over at the end will be raffled for anyone who leaves a comment on this video. 3 of the Fab Metal tokens will be given to my oldest patrons, and then 2 from my personal collection Arsenal Pass token, as well as just a personal Fab Metal token, will be given at random as well. Jumping into our video today, Trench of Sunken Treasure shows a pirate, and this is basically what the entire video is about. Seeing this card and then hearing some quick speculation about whether or not there's pirates in Fab was a really cool springboard. So what I ended up doing was starting with a very simple mechanic called Plunder. This basically incentivizes a more aggro playstyle where as you hit your opponent multiple times and connect, you basically are going to generate extra resources, which are just going to be the copper, silver, and gold. The idea is as you go longer on the chain and hit your opponent multiple times, you're going to be getting more and more resources, essentially kind of mimicking the idea of storming someone's ship, taking all of their gold, and then we're going to eventually recreate somewhat like Assassin. One of the ideas was actually cashing in the tokens for additional effects on cards. So with Shank here, you could give it +1, but we also could bring back some other key mechanics as well. You could even bring in things like Intimidate, as historically pirates were very brutal, not very clean fighters, and a lot of the times they just went through intimidation tactics, things like that. And so that could actually be a really fun way to do it, where you could cash in multiple coins, and as you do, you could get additional effects on cards. And we're going to be kind of rolling with that today. So the idea is a more aggressive play style in order to actually get the tokens, but then there are some pretty cool payoffs once you actually accrue some wealth for yourself. So jumping into some ways that you can cash in gold. So here we have Final Encounter, a card that arguably might be overstated. This might be a common trend in the video. These are really initial ideas. These are not iterated on. Getting that idea across where you could build up some different coins, and then depending on the situation, you could actually tailor a card for what you want. Also create a weapon that can kind of synergize with the Plunder mechanic as well, and creating cards that could actually benefit a playstyle that wants to attack multiple times with the sword, potentially get some coins, or to chain the sword into a longer turn where maybe you play an attack that actually cashes in one of the coins. So this is what leads us to our first hero, which is going to be Blackbeard. We're going to sort of mirror the cash-in style payment, where you're going to be using an alternate cost of coins to activate the effect. And this is really cool because this can sort of lend itself into 2 different ways. You could play a more controlling style of Blackbeard, where taking cards from your opponent is a way to mess with their deck, remove cards from it, turn their own threats against them. Or in a more aggressive shell, you can use it to actually get you additional cards to play on your own turn. We can just come up with a few different ideas of cards that sort of mimic this idea of extorting from your opponent, taking their resources, taking their cards. Card like Takeover, while potentially being too strong and needing to be reworked in numbers, kind of gets that idea across of overtaking your opponent, forcing them to surrender. And so that's a really cool theme that I think could really play into Pirate. This idea of attacking your opponent, and when your attacks connect, you extort them for resources, you extort them for cards, while still not trying to be too overboard with it and still giving your opponent some agency to play around these effects. But we can also use gold as an additional mini game of resources. So with a card like Voyage, we can actually pay an alternative cost, cash in some of our coins that we've accrued, go on an expedition basically, and find a treasure chest. The treasure chest is basically going to continue this economy minigame. It just synergizes with Plunder to give us gold tokens. Specifically, this is because some of the cards are going to want gold tokens that have very good payoffs. We can also work this into tutor mechanics, things like that, where the treasure chest can also become a resource that's used for payment costs. This is all kind of just adding an additional side game to your Fab match, where on top of numbers and raw damage to your opponent, you're also creating additional resources that are flexible and can serve an ultimate end game plan. This is a concept that I find really interesting in both Azuri and Arachne, where the silver generation allows you to buy back your equipment, which in turn help you get access to more damage and more silver. So once you get this engine going, it feels a little bit like a Euro game, but it is very fun and rewarding, and I like having that option in Fab. So I know looking at SSL, you're wondering what Rising Sun is. Well, Rising Sun is a construct, and it's going to turn itself into a ship ally, basically. We're going to take some of the wording from the Nitro Mechanoid, this really cool idea, constructing something that we can use. And so this idea, paying to rebuild the ship, this legendary ally, is a very fun thing to have in my opinion. And you can even have ship attacks basically, where we put a clause on it where you can only use it if you have the ship. And so it's almost as if the ship is attacking your opponent itself. And this is a really cool thematic way where you're going to plunder your opponent for their gold, their copper, their silver, what have you. You can embark on an expedition to find this broken ship, restore it, and then you can close the game out with it. It's basically like a finisher. Hullbreaker might be way too OP. That's basically like Guardian card value with an insane clause that just wins you the game. So that one could probably be entirely reworked, but I do like that idea of having this finisher be attached to owning the ally. It's as if the ship is attacking your opponent. So that was Blackbeard, basically an aggressive but somewhat controlling hero. But what if we go in the other direction and we go with an insane pirate that's completely reckless, just wants to cause mayhem on the seas, and that's where you get Tana. So Tana, once per turn, whenever she would take damage, you're going to create a fire keg token, and it's a token that you're going to put on your opponent's side, and it's an ally that you can attack, and when you attack it, it blows up and deals 3 arcane to them. Specifically, the reason why it says once per turn is you could have cards that deal damage symmetrically to both you and your opponent. So with a card like Ignite, you deal 1 to both players, but because it's during your turn, assuming your opponent can't deal damage at instant speed, you then get to also create a fire keg token, which is an upside to the card, since then you can attack it, your opponent can't block for the ally, and so then you get to deal 3 arcane damage to your opponent. This could also be worked into some cards that have effects that deal damage to you when you play them, or require damage as a cost of payment. So the idea with Tana is that you pretty much want to be always kind of taking damage. Your card's going to deal damage to you, but the upside is that you can stack a bunch of these fire keg tokens on your opponent and then blow them all up, and then at some point your opponent would probably just die if they had a critical mass of them. So a specialization like Set Ablaze would be a way where if you didn't want to play her super aggressively and you want to play a slow game, always kind of pinging yourself for 1, always kind of leaking a damage from your opponent while blocking efficiently, you could stack up a bunch of fire kegs and then just blow them all up basically. Create a critical mass and you just completely obliterate your opponent all in 1 turn. So I want to come up with some additional weapons. And the first one I came up with was the Cutlass, and the idea is that you get a negative incentive for attacking an ally. This isn't enough to destroy a keg, but if you attack your opponent, then it's a 1 for 2 with go again. And then you can mirror this effect and have Flintlock Pistol, where this is enough where you can shoot the fire keg from a distance. It's enough to blow up the keg. And so in the right circumstance, both of these weapons, you can run them dual-handed as well, are 1 for 2s with go again, but in the worst circumstances, they're both 1 for 1s. But that flexibility, I think, would make them very exciting and playable. And these would be really cool sideboard options to have. While also the other weapon from earlier can fit a more aggressive style that maybe even still may be possible for a hero like Tana. And then you can also run things that would potentially maybe reload your pistol, let you swing a second time with your weapon if you need that, or it could bank you action points, for instance, if you're playing against something like Illusionist. So let's go over what we made today. We made a pirate class, and the pirate class wants to be aggressive, wants to intimidate our opponent, take their cards, plunder them, take their resources, take their gold, all this kind of stuff, to basically build a crew, to build a ship, and to close out the game against them, and to play our own sort of resource mini game. Or you can have a pirate that just wants to cause chaos, and that's like a fun combo oriented version of the deck that isn't controlling or trying to be aggressive. It's a sort of set up flashy, very Timmy like end to a Flesh and Blood game. Regardless, all this is just my ideas. This is what I came up with over a weekend. This is not set in stone. These could change. I could change my opinion on what I want this class to look like, but let me know in the comments what you think would be really cool for a pirate class. If you even think there should be a pirate class in Fab, what you would want from it, the kind of play style, if you think that this design is kind of in a fun direction, or if you think it should go somewhere else. And just keep in mind, this is literally only because I saw Trench of Sunken Treasure. Just seeing this art made me think about the fact that there could potentially be pirates in the world of Wraith, and whether or not they should just make a pirate class, because I think they should. I think that'd be a really fun element to have in a high fantasy game. I think that's a really fun theme to have. And I think that with the current framework of Fab, a lot of these cards felt kind of intuitive. This idea of on hits, right? That feels very thematic to pirates. This idea of resource tokens, of allies. It feels like something Fab could do very easily in the future. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Until next time, thank you for watching.